what these trainers are going to be bringing and how Eduardo is going to be able to play around that Bishop by jumping right into this match. I'm excited again for this losers bracket to see how that sort of scenario is going to affect these players and see who is going to be able to break out and stay in the competition. Eduardo's side though going for that Togekiss and Excadrill, whereas Alessio has gone for the Cinderace and the Bishop, so leading with that really strong synergy core.
Yeah, I mean, they pair up so nicely, and we can kind of see how they match up against Eduardo's side of the field. You know, you've got the Steel type on Bishop to try and deal with the Togekiss. You've got the Fire type moves from Cinderace to deal with the Excadrill. Really kind of works out quite nicely in that regard. Of course, Cinderace does have the option to change its typing really quickly, and that could help. In certain instances, you know, something like the Excadrill, an Earthquake, would be great here against a Steel and a Fire type, but it honestly gives, you know, that opportunity and that idea to Alessio to say, you know what, I'm going to become a different type. It can become a flying type. And then it's not going to get hit by the Earthquake. It's going to be nice and safe, and it's able to start dealing damage. And if it decides to go for a max move, go max Airstream, it's getting speed boosts as well, which honestly it doesn't need. It's that fast already. But it's just to make sure that your partner Pokemon's moving first too.
That's the really critical thing. You have to exactly calculate the speed tiers in each turn because you don't want to be hitting Cinderace for what was a super effective move for then a not very effective move, as it has changed its typing because you moved after it in the turn. So that's something that Eduardo really is going to have to calculate well and make sure that he isn't accidentally wasting a turn, whether it's Dynamax or not, by targeting into that Pokemon and not dealing as much damage as he potentially could. But hey, this match is kicking off in explosive style. We've got both Dynamax Pokemon on the field, Cinderace for Yuri and Excadrill there for Eduardo. We did see the Cinderace jump up into its big form first of all, as Togekiss just goes for a Protective, so wants to protect herself from any Steel type moves, potentially from that Bishop, as Cinderace just goes straight for a Max Flare, going right into that Excadrill, does a huge amount of damage, but I don't believe that picked up the KO.
No, it doesn't look like it. He does get control of the weather with that harsh sunlight, but the Focus Sash, it looks like it's getting... Oh, it's not the Focus Sash, it's the Weakness Policy. My apologies. Doesn't get the knockout and activates the Weakness Policy. This could get real nasty real quickly. A Steel Spike in return to the Bishop. So a really high damage turn to kick things off. The defense boosts are going to be really helpful here, particularly for that Togekiss, but the Excadrill manages to cling on through the Iron Head because of the defense boost. This Excadrill pulling its weight so hard in turn number 1 here in the losers bracket.
Whew. Yeah, almost like it has that invisible Focus Sash that you mentioned there, Adam, as well, able to hang on by what must be a slither of HP, and this is exactly what we were talking about by predicting the speed tiers of this turn. By getting defense boost up before that Iron Head connected, allowed the Excadrill to hang on. Togekiss, however, did protect that turn and wasn't a target, so missed opportunity there for Eduardo, but this turn going for that Follow Me, so just wants to try its best to keep that Excadrill on the field for one more turn. Cinderace going for a Max Flare, this time in the sun. It's going to be dealing even more damage and doesn't quite pick up a KO against that Togekiss, but certainly puts it in range if it's followed up by that Bishop to get the KO. Excadrill though going for another Max Steel Spike, boosting up the defense even further into the opposing Cinderace. Even though it's not very effective, thanks to the Weakness Policy boost, that does a huge chunk of damage. And these defense boosts, although they're great, both the Pokemon on Eduardo's side are such low health, and Iron Head being super effective means Togekiss is not able to hang on and will be KO'd. But this does give Eduardo the opportunity to bring in another Pokemon.
Yeah, maybe something that can help out with the speed. I mean, this Excadrill, if it gets caught by another Max Flare, is going to struggle, but now he may be able to fight back. That Rotom obviously able to deal great damage to the Cinderace if it keeps on Max Flaring. That Excadrill, though, doing so much. I was so certain it was a knockout. Didn't quite see that sliver left on the bar. Being able to Steel Spike, take the Iron Head, basically means that both trainers are going to get a full 3 turns of time to use their Dynamax. And it's really going to be interesting to see where we end up at the end of this turn, right? You know, there is a Pokemon down on Eduardo's side of the field. That's not great, but his Pokemon are a little bit healthier in the way that he's got a full-on Rotom there right now.
Yeah, and going for the Max Strike here, Not actually the most commonly seen max move, but it is going to lower the speed on Eduardo's side of the field. Meaning, of course, Alessio is going to be speedier going into this next turn, and that might help out the Bishop as well going forward. Rotom, though, having joined the field, is going to be able to munch on its berry. Again, only just managing to hang on. The Citrus Berry regaining a tiny slither of health there. Assurance coming out, but going into the max guard. So again, Excadrill going to hang on for this next turn. Rotom going for the Thunderbolt, though, going to pick up the KO against that Bishop. So it looks like it's a 3 versus 3 Pokemon now.
Yeah, and I like that play. I think Alessio showing off one of those cool tricks that this team has with Max Strike, lowering the speeds, helps Bishop follow up before your opponent has a chance to move with Assurance, which obviously does more damage if, there's already been things going on in that turn. But right now, the Cinderace, yeah, it's normal type. I don't think that's super relevant right now, but it's still going to be in a good position to try and deal some damage. I like the Dusclops selection here. I think that could help out towards the end of the game, and there's really nothing on Eduardo's side of the field that immediately threatens it or immediately makes you think, oh yeah, he can deal with this Dusclops. That Dusclops could quite simply set up a Trick Room and help out Yuri's 4th Pokemon and kind of set up these 2 modes where he led with the fast option with Cinderace, switched it up in the middle of the game and kept going. Eduardo forced to switch out the Excadrill. Doesn't feel good about it being on the field with such low health.
Yeah, and I like the switch that he's done, actually bringing that Snorlax into a potential Trick Room, as we have actually seen Alessio lock that in. So making sure that Pokemon is on the field for that environment is kind of a good strategy there for Eduardo as the Cinderace goes for Bounce. Again, I love this play by Alessio. The Bounce means that the Cinderace in this next turn, now the Trick Room is in effect, is going to be protected for the turn. It's going to be moving last, but you can't hit it until it's back on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, that's really nice play, and it's something that a lot of trainers don't think about when they're using Bounce, is how much invulnerability can you get? Like, if it bounced, there was no Trick Room, it would come back down and then be liable to be hit. Well, now it's completely safe, so, Eduardo has to play around that, and your only target, really, is this Dusclops, which, yeah, if you're just wasting turns attacking into it, you're certainly not getting the damage where it needs to go, right?
Exactly. Dusclops here, just going for a Nightshade. Going to pick up the KO against the Excadrill that switched in. I feel like the Excadrill was really just stacked up here by Eduardo. He wants to keep the Rotom around for another turn. As the Snorlax goes for a Yawn into that Dusclops, they're going to stop it from picking up some KOs against that Rotom potentially. Nightshade is going to deal a big chunk of damage to it as Bounce connects onto that Snorlax. And thanks to the Life Orb, that actually does almost a third to the Snorlax, such a bulky Pokemon. And that was something I was thinking about. Alessio needs a way to be able to take down the Snorlax. Dusclops doesn't really have the capability to do it. So for the current state of play, Cinderace needs to be able to start whittling away at that Snorlax before it's able to regain some health and cause problems.
Yeah, and we've seen in move selection, Cinderace certainly has some options, but he does have to be careful in exactly how he uses those. Doesn't want to end up looking foolish by taking a lot of damage on his own. I think the interesting thing, and we can obviously see it, and I don't know if Edu's kind of thought about this, is the Primarina's in the back, and now he's preserved that Rotom. And I think that's something he was very aware of when preserving that Rotom by switching into the Excadrill. I really liked to say, hey, Trick Room's up, Excadrill's done so much this game, thank you so much Excadrill, but not anymore. That said, Rotom showing one of the issues it has against Dusclops, a very low HP pool, really not able to stack that up too much, and it just gets knocked out by a Nightshade.
Exactly, Dusclops, not an offensive Pokemon, but really putting in the work here and able to pick up those KOs so that the partner Pokemon can deal the bigger offensive pressures where needed, and picks up the KO nicely against that Rotom. It does take a little bit of a nap, but I don't feel like it actually has a way to touch this opposing Snorlax. Maybe with Pain Split, it can just start regaining a little bit of health, but it's really going to come down to the Primarina. It's come in, it's healthy, and it can apply a bit of pressure to the Snorlax as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Dusclops really not going to threaten the Snorlax at all. I think the Primarina's got so much to do. We do see the boosting move of choice on Edu's Snorlax here. Curse, not the most common. I think a lot more people have been going for Belly Drum, particularly in this tournament, but Curse helping out your attack a little bit there. That said, if you're not putting the Primarina to sleep with Yawn, it's just going to be able to start dealing damage with this Moonblast. Gets the drop special attack, not at all important, but nice to know that you can get those. And we do see those leftovers coming through. Means we could be in for a bit of a slog at the end of this game, Lou.
Yeah, it's always us, Adam, I swear, when we cast. There's always some kind of storm going on here. But it looks like sort of Primarina, if it's able to keep dealing out some big damage,
Ooh.
but first of all, it has to actually survive the Seed Bomb coming out from the Snorlax. That was actually something we saw, I believe, in day one, where Snorlax gets that boost up. The defense boost from the Curse, really not too relevant here, but getting that attack boost really puts it in a position to start threatening that Primarina strongly. Primarina going for a Moonblast in return, doesn't pick up the KO, and as Snorlax is able to keep going for these Seed Bombs and keep regaining its health a little bit more with the leftovers. If Primarina is not able to pick up the KO against the Snorlax, it's going to be KO'd in return by a Seed Bomb.
Yeah, but also the Trick Room just ended, which means as Primarina gets to attack first, we see Yuri switch it up to the Hydro Cannon. It does miss. Dusclops wakes up though, gets the Will-O-Wisp down, and I think that's the perfect time to wake up. I think probably a moment of panic there that Alessio is able to kind of work through as we see this Seed Bomb landing after the Will-O-Wisp. Is enough to get the knockout though. That's a critical hit, helping out there.
Oh my goodness, everything just went wild in that turn. Primarina unable to connect the Hydro Cannon that would have done so much damage against that Snorlax. I believe picking up a nice KO there. Dusclops going, oh, you missed, but hey, I've woken up, let's Will-O-Wisp, let's help you survive the Seed Bomb. But Snorlax going, no, I'm going to crit through that. And now Dusclops in this awkward position where I feel like it cannot touch this Dusclops at all. Will-O-Wisp really was its only option, and that's counteracted by the leftovers.
Yeah, I mean, the Will-O-Wisp was the only way to get some damage down on it, and as you say, the leftovers just heals that up perfectly. So really not going to be the best for Dusclops. Interesting though, we get to see how much Seed Bombs do against the Dusclops. Maybe Eduardo's going to give us some information on his Snorlax set, or maybe we're just going to kind of call it quits early on instead of forcing us through a number of tough turns. So I guess thank you, Alessio, for not putting you and I through a long end game like that again, Lou. But honestly, that game was so close. So many little changes could have changed the winner, and a knockout turn one would have got there. Changed it up. The extra wouldn't have been able to do much. Some of those switches were great, but I don't think you want to be in a Dusclops versus Snorlax end game.
No, exactly, and it was kind of a tale of two halves. At the beginning, Yuri's really going for that fast defensive approach with the Cinderace, but he doesn't manage to pick up the KOs against that Excadrill. Eduardo able to hang on, stops him from sort of trailblazing through his team. The game then switches up as Yuri sets up the Trick Room and tries to go for that alternative strategy with the Primarina in the back, but unfortunately for him, Eduardo also had a counter to that by bringing his Snorlax, so again, wasn't going to be KO'd and could capitalise on the speed being favourable for the Snorlax and able to pick up some KOs. But I think crucially having that Seed Bomb on there really put him in a strong position, and getting that crit at the end was just a bit of bad luck for Yuri.
Yeah, and also missing the Hydro Cannon. I don't think we can overlook that. He wanted to make sure that he wasn't trying to get close with something like the Moonblast that we'd seen before. So committing to the Hydro Cannon, it does have the chance to miss. That is unfortunate, but I think Yuri knows his strategy here, and I think he's certainly got the opportunity to fight back. One of the key things I think we should talk about in this tournament is Snorlax sets. Everyone's running it a little bit differently, and once you know about that Snorlax set, you can play around it a whole lot more effectively. So let's move to game 2. Let's see if Yuri can fight back, or if Edu can wrap this one up and keep himself going in the tournament.
Well, it's going to be a fast lead out here for Eduardo with the Dragapult and the Excadrill, whereas Yuri has opted again for that Cinderace and Bishop combination. And I can't disagree with that. I think they work really well together, and potentially with the information we learned from game 1 and calling the speed tiers and who moves first in this turn, it could be a different game. But Dragapult throws an interesting mechanic into the mix, being super speedy.
Yeah, Dragapult definitely changes things up a little bit here. Both trainers saying, hey, I'm going to carve out an early lead, I'm going to put you on the back foot, and I'm going to try and get you early on and force those wins. Be interesting to see exactly what Yuri does with the Bishop here. I think the Bishop has plenty of options to try and cause some chaos. We talk about Dark-type moves against Dragapult, and Bishop has no shortage of those. It's certainly got options, and maybe, there's going to be a world where the Cinderace can help out that Bishop. We saw the Max Strike with the speed drop. Obviously you can't target the Dragapult with Max Strike, but, if you really needed to, if you needed to get a little bit of damage down, maybe that's the way to go. We'll see exactly how these trainers decide to go with these very offensive leads, as it looks like we're going back to the double Dynamax on turn 1, Lou.
Yeah, I think choosing the Dynamax for Eduardo is going to be critical here. We saw Excadrill do so well in game 1, but Dynamaxing up that Dragapult plays a whole different mechanic. Bishop going for the Sucker Punch means Dragapult is able to survive out this turn. If it hadn't Dynamaxed, it would have been KO'd. And Dragapult's able to go here for a big max Airstream, targeting down into Alessio Cinderace. Doesn't actually pick up the KO here, but gets the speed up. No Dynamax though from Alessio in this situation, which is very, very interesting as Excadrill goes for the Earthquake. So picks up the KO against Cinderace, brings the Bishop down to 13 HP. Really sort of putting Alessio here on the back foot, but it does enable him to go for this Trick Room mode. And I actually really like that play there by Alessio. There wasn't really anything he could do to stop Earthquake and a max move from the Dragapult. So I actually love the way he didn't Dynamax and decided to go, you know what? The sort of turn 0, not my best situation. Let's move into the next turn and try and gain an advantage.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I was expecting him to Dynamax it and try and retaliate with, you know, playing around that Libero ability with the Cinderace, but not doing that. Kind of giving up the Cinderace, not usually the most common idea, is say, hey, you know what? Just knock it out. Let's move on. And we'll go from there. That said, you know, Max guarding, definitely trying to avoid a Sucker Punch, certainly trying to help there. But it looks like Yuri is so confident in his last 2 Pokemon in Dusclops, and as we know from a little bit of a sneak preview on our side, Primarina, you know, it looks like he's just going to want to play with those for the rest of the game. So admitting that his lead wasn't the way to go, no Dynamax from either of those. And yeah, he's down to 2 Pokemon after 2 turns. And Edu's still got 4, so much riding on this Primarina, and of course its partner in Dusclops.
Yeah, I mean, the irony is there's a sort of 4-2 Pokemon advantage here, but Yuri looked so in control. Having the Bishop there, applying the pressure with the Sucker Punch to the Dragapult meant that Dusclops was able to get up a really free Trick Room. And now that he's got the Primarina, a Pokemon that can deal out super effective damage against both Pokemon on the opposing side of the field, and also against this Arcanine that switched in, if he's maybe gone for a Max Geyser into that slot, really does show that he's got the advantage to his side in the Trick Room environment. If he can call the right targets and select the right moves, then Yuri is going to be able to absolutely sweep through Eduardo's team, and preserving the Dynamax for this Primarina I think has definitely been the optimal decision in this game.
Spoiler alert, this turn is definitely going in Yuri's favor. We saw exactly what moves he's selected. I don't want to ruin it for you guys, but he's called this switch so well. And being able to Will-O-Wisp the Excadrill as well keeps it completely in a very negative position, right? It's not got those boosts from Dynamaxing like it did in game 1, so it's certainly going to struggle. He also forced out and forced away that Dragapult before its Dynamax ended, which means he probably is on the upper foot. The Arcanine comes in, gets caught by a Max Geyser, and yeah, that's not the preferred switch in when you are someone like Edu. You want to keep up the momentum, but his momentum from those early knockouts is just completely negated now.
Yeah, particularly when you've got rid of the Bishop, it's almost like the safe time for Arcanine to come in, right? But not when there's a Max Geyser coming right into that slot. But beautiful play there by Yuri. He keeps the Excadrill in check by going for that Will-O-Wisp and going for the Max Geyser. We know Max Starfall's more optimal when you're sort of facing down against a Dragapult, but due to the reduced health that it had, going for that Max Geyser could potentially have picked up the KO anyway. And I think predicting the Arcanine coming in here, that Eduardo might want to preserve the Dragapult for once Trick Room is over, really was a great call. He's now got a Rotom to face down though, and that's a Pokemon that can provide a little bit of difficulty for Primarina.
Yeah, obviously the Thunderbolts could be problematic, get that damage down, but it's certainly not the best kind of offensive threat. There's certainly options you'd rather have, and I think something like that Snorlax with the Seed Bomb would be preferred here, right? You know, we saw how much the Seed Bomb did, would certainly help out. It looks like the Excadrill is really not that scary, and the fact it had to take a turn to Swords Dance instead of fire back with any kind of attack certainly helps Yuri keep the momentum. The Rotom, though, trying to help burn down some of those Dynamax turns for this Primarina, along with the Excadrill. So Edu saying, wow, that turn didn't go well. Let's only give you one more turn of your Dynamax Primarina to hurt me with.
Yeah, really trying to work through these Trick Room turns. As Primarina goes for a Max Geyser, going into that Rotom in the rain only does a slither of damages, is not very effective, and of course Protect really negating the impact there. But every little bit of chip can make the difference, and nothing has changed in the sense that Primarina is still in such an offensive position, and the fact that Dusclops can help out by chipping away 50 HP potentially from that Rotom as well, just puts Alessio in such a strong position.
Yeah, and I mean, you're really asking questions if you're in Yuri's shoes here. You're saying, hey, I mean, you can't bring in your Dragapult because there's the chance that I'm just going to max Starfall you on the way in. I'm not too worried about your Excadrill because it's burned, but you did Swords Dance, so I'll get you back for that. And we do see Dusclops Nightshading, saying, hey, I know your Rotom actually doesn't have that much health, and I'm going to capitalize off that by doing a fixed number of health every single turn.
Yeah, and doubling up into that Rotom is enough to get the KO, and it also sets up the Mystery Terrain. I quite like this in the sense you can't get any more Status Afflictions if that Rotom was maybe able to get a Paralysis with something, but unfortunately it's been KO'd, so that's not going to happen at all. Iron Head coming out from the Excadrill though, doing a little bit of chip to that Dusclops, but the burn really putting in the work here and negating the physical offensive output that Excadrill has. It also means Eduardo is now forced to bring that Dragapult back into play, and it's still not in a favourable position. This Primarina, I believe, is still at full HP as well. Going for something like a Hyper Voice in the rain is just going to be able to pick up the KO here.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really easy way to start tidying up the game, right? Nightshades and Hyper Voices, throwing those down, just keeping that damage output consistent. And this pairing, Dusclops Primarina, you know, we always talk about Dusclops and Snorlax, Dusclops and Hatterene maybe. Maybe Dusclops Primarina is the new thing that everyone has to worry about and see what they can do.
Yeah, there's always iconic Trick Room pairs, right? And this could potentially be another one that Yuri is carving out. Dragapult going for the Protect, Excadrill goes for the Protect as well. So again, just trying to play defensively as this Trick Room does like to sort of tinkle out here. Of course, no more Dynamax, so there's no more breaking through these Protects, but it still does ask the question, what can Eduardo do to pick up the KO here? Excadrill isn't dealing out a lot of offensive pressure, and the Dragapult is going to be limited to what moves it can select, and I don't feel like the Dragapult is going to be able to pick up anything near a one-hit KO.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting here is, you know, there's easy Trick Room to go back up, right? Edu just kind of burned both his Protects in that turn, so he's got to take damage at some point this turn, and his options are so hard. Do I go after this Dusclops and stop him Trick Rooming and stop him confirming that win in the next turn? Or do I go after this Primarina and hope I can deal enough damage to knock it out? Looks like the Dusclops is going to be the target here. But, you know, with Phantom Force, there's no damage coming through this turn. Trick Room's going to go back up, and this Primarina's got to be feeling pretty good about itself.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even if the Dusclops does flinch due to the Iron Head and doesn't get Trick Room up, the thing is the Phantom Force isn't going to be able to pick up the KO against that Primarina, and it's going to be able to retaliate with a Hyper Voice. Even out of the rain, I feel like that will be a nice KO against that Dragapult. So it does turn out that there was a flinch, so at least you stop the Trick Room going up again. But I feel like it's not a way to close out the match, and Yuri is going to be able to take this to a Game 3.
Yeah, I mean, Yuri's forced us into Game 3, the losers bracket. Those high-intensity, high-stakes matches carry on. The Dusclops does fall. That little bit of Life Orb recall there on the Dragapult doesn't really matter. Primarina's got Moonblast, and is going to force us to Game 3 in this set. Everything to play for in what is essentially a well-informed best-of-1 right now.
Yeah, exactly. The winner of this next game, the Game 3, will be able to remain in the competition, and the loser is knocked out. And I think that's been a really interesting thing from day 2. You know, when we were looking at the winners bracket earlier with Aaron and Rosemary, the games were really, really quick, you know, really powerful start to the tournament. And now that we've gone into this losers bracket, we're taking them to Game 3 so far every time in today's matches. And that really is showing that every single game is counting here. These players are fighting tooth and nail to be able to stay in this tournament, and it's going to be a tough one for the players that we've just watched, as we've seen the games go either way. And I thought that was masterfully played by Yuri, that he took that bad situation in turn 0, didn't go for the obvious choice of Dynamaxing the Cinderace, and actually said, I've got a plan B, I'm going to go for it, and I'm going to sweep right through your team.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to me that plan B was let my leads get knocked out and then sweep with the back 2. It's usually, it's pretty high risk, but in this case, it's high reward. It keeps him in the tournament and forces us to game number 3. I think game number 3 is going to be so back and forth. Both players know all the tricks and secrets on their opponent's team. Of course, they did get to see a little bit beforehand, as we mentioned at the top of the show, with seeing each other's team lists. But now you see exactly how they execute those. So I think this game has got, obviously, all to play for, but so much information should give us a really explosive match.
Yeah, if I was Eduardo, I'd probably want to make sure that Snorlax is in the back, as it did so well for him in Game 1, and I feel like he missed it in Game 2. He really needed it to counteract that Primarina. The leads, though, Yuri going for what he knows, and Cinderace and Bishop are on the field, facing down against Togekiss and Excadrill. So Again, leads we've seen often from Yuri, but he looks like he's in a safer position to go for that Dynamax this turn.
Good old Togekiss Excadrill. We've seen that one a few times. Certainly yes. A potent pairing, and as we've mentioned, you can freely Earthquake next to this Togekiss, and you're going to get super effective damage down on a Cinderace and on the Bisharp. I think this might be one of those turns where Yuri decides to try and play around that with certain types of moves, getting away from that, changing its typing, and leaving the Bisharp, I guess, on its own. But if he can plan around that, follow up, maybe do a little bit better than the way it kind of played out in game number 1, carve out a bigger advantage. He doesn't need to throw away his lead this time. I think he's feeling a lot more comfortable about it against this pairing.
Yeah, again, it's thinking through those turns. If you're going for a max Airstream with the Libra ability, turning yourself into a flying type, you're going to be able to avoid those Earthquakes. And it may not be as fortunate for the Bisharp, but Bisharp can apply a lot of offensive pressure on his own. If you're Alessio, though, you want to try and get rid of that Togekiss. You just want rid of any kind of redirectional support action so that you're free to target down the partner Pokemon later on. And we've seen how much damage that Yuri can do to this Excadrill when it's in its Dynamax form. Not necessarily enough to pick up the KO, but this time he's going to have to deal with the Dynamax Togekiss. Again, this Pokemon, there's really no end to its versatility. It can be supportive, it can be offensive, it can be Dynamax, and that's the mode that Eduardo has gone for in this situation. Excadrill just going for a Protect though, no free Earthquakes coming out from here, maybe knowing that the Max Airstream was coming out and he'd have to work around that later on. Turning itself into a flying type, the Cinderace is going to connect onto that opposing Togekiss, doing about 1/3 of damage here.
Yeah, I mean, getting damage down on a Dynamax Togekiss is important. Every little helps when you're trying to wear it down. Cinderace is going to take a little bit. And the follow-up Iron Head from Bisharp, a lot of damage, but because of the Dynamax, Togekiss is still there. That means it's able to match the speed boost from Max Airstream with a Max Airstream of its own, keep some parity in that between both sides of the field, and leave us in a very interesting position coming into the following turn.
Yeah, it's interesting as well. The Togekiss was kind of forced to go for a Max Airstream in this situation so that it can match the Max Airstream of Cinderace's side and keep the speed on sort of a level playing field. But because there's Airstream apiece, the Cinderace is still going to be faster and be able to pick up a KO against that Togekiss. I think it's interesting as well, Eduardo has Dynamaxed a different Pokemon in every single game, just showing the versatility of his team, and potentially was trying to catch out Yuri by going for the Togekiss in this situation. But again, Yuri able to apply the right offensive pressure, puts himself in a position where he can easily pick up the KO in this next turn.
Yeah, I honestly, I like the way that this is being played out. I think that, both trainers exchanging kind of speed boosts is very, very wise. And I think this switch in is very, very smart from Edu, saying, hey, I know about Max Strike. I know it's there, so I'm going to Max Guard and give you an option where you can't hit me either.
Exactly, going into the Max Guard there, meaning that turn from the Cinderace is null and void, but the Assurance following up into that Dragapult does a huge amount of damage. It is able to hang on, but it's not going to be on the field for too much longer.
Yeah, I mean, usually people try and follow up an attack with Assurance to get the double damage, but Dragapult, yes, very fast, yes, does a lot of damage, not that bulky, and now pretty much can't attack while Bisharp's on the field. If it does, Sucker Punch is going to be able to deal with it. So, he has to play around that, and this Togekiss, can't do too much, I think, to try and deal with that. So we'll see if Yuri can capitalize on this good position. Another Max Guard, so this Togekiss just Max Airstreaming once in all 3 of its Dynamax turns.
Yeah, goes for the double Max Guard here, really stalling out the turns of the Cinderace's Dynamax as well. But that still doesn't really help him too much on the speed advantage here. The Dragapult, although speedy, like we've said, there's so many things that Bisharp can do to KO it, but even if the Dragapult is able to get one move off, thanks to the Life Orb, it's going to be KO'd after that one turn, so it does not have the longevity here to help Eduardo out. Togekiss could, of course, go for some redirection in this situation, but like I said, Dragapult's not going to hang around.
Yeah, Dragapult can't attack. That's simple. It attacks. I mean, even if it lands an attack when Bisharp's gone, the Life Orb will get it. We see Alessio just forcing him to make that switch, right? And now the Togekiss isn't Dynamax, there's going to be a number of ways to knock it out. This is an interesting play to try and keep the Dragapult around. Bisharp's Sucker Punch being pulled that way but failing. Cinderace will be able to get the knockout anyway, but this Dragapult can only really target down one of these Pokemon, and that's going to be an issue. Dragon Darts might help a little bit, but we'll see exactly what it can get out of this, I guess, one remaining turn.
Yeah, Pokeball picking up the KO against that Togekiss, and like I said, Dragon Dance is the good choice here. You can get some decent damage across onto these Pokemon, a little bit of chip, and break the Focus Sash on that Bishop as well. And actually, it does pay off by getting the KO on the Cinderace, but as we saw in Game 2, KOing the Cinderace is not necessarily a good thing, as it gives Alessio the opportunity to switch in a Pokemon from the back, potentially and most likely that Trick Room mode. You can see Pokemon there, a little sneak peek, and it now allows him to go into sort of the second mode of this battle. Like, phase 1 is over, now it's time for phase 2. The thing is though, Togekiss is down. If there is Snorlax in the back, it's a perfect opportunity for Eduardo to bring it in.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to see exactly what Eduardo has, and I guess, you know, Yuri can make that game plan. There's no Snorlax, it's going to be the Rotom paired up with that Excadrill. So, kind of obvious what he has to deal with first, right? Deal with the Rotom so the Primarina's nice and safe. Of course, the Primarina can't Dynamax, so we're going to have a different endgame to what we had last time. But, you know, this Bishop still on the field. Bishop still deals a lot of damage. Even Assurancing without the boost, it's getting the damage down.
Yeah, and I like going for the Assurance there. Sucker Punch was too risky when you consider things like Swords Dance and Nasty Plot there, which is exactly what Rotom has gone for. It seemed like there wasn't really anything that Eduardo could do to stop the Trick Room, so again, if you're Eduardo, you need to capitalize on that. Let's go for setup, let's click Swords Dance, let's put Nasty Plot, so that when Primarina comes in, I'm going to be able to have the best opportunity to try and pick up a KO. But now the Trick Room's up, there's no more Dynamax potential here. Dusclops can go for those Nightshades, take away 50 HP from these Pokemon, and if the Bishop goes for a Sucker Punch, that's also going to hit very hard.
Yeah, I mean, the Bishop Sucker Punch is going to be very, very damaging on both these Pokemon. Just making sure you break Focus Sash on Excadrill, I think, is important here. Making sure you kind of keep the Rotom in check. Very, very wise as well. But the Rotom protects, so this turn could be really big for Alessio. Putting down that pressure. The Bishop Sucker Punch going in the right direction. Look at that damage. That's insane.
Nearly
Followed up by Nightshade. Oh.
Yeah, like that's big damage going down onto the Excadrill. Predicts the Protect on the Rotom, but either way, I think you were right. You need to get rid of that Focus Sash. It just makes things so much easier for Primarina in the back. I'm considering both of the Pokemon on Alessio's side are still here in action. They're going to be able to keep whittling away at these Pokemon so that when Primarina comes in, it literally just has to click Hyper Voice and try and win out this match.
Yeah, I mean, it needs to come in before the Trick Room ends, which right now, you know, it's not going to if there's no knockouts coming from Eduardo's Rotom and Excadrill. That said, I mean, these Sucker Punches are going to start to really hurt. This is one of the mind games that you have to play against Bishop. Not only do you have to worry about, are you going to give it boost and intimidate? You have to worry about, are you going to let it Sucker Punch you freely? That Rotom takes a whole lot of damage, enough to activate its berry, and maybe keep it around for one more turn. But, you know, there's only so much you can do when this Bishop is just Sucker Punching you over and over again.
Exactly, you know, getting rid of these items as well for Premier in the back is going to be really helpful, and with Bishop going down with a critical hit, so Rotom, you know, really trying to pack a punch here, means that Premier is going to be able to join the battle at the end of this turn. Excadrill going for the Iron Head does do a good chunk of damage to that Dusclops thanks to the Swords Dance boost, but we know that Dusclops as well is packing that Will-O-Wisp. That's something that Dusclops can go for in this next turn, or to be honest, looking at the stat on Excadrill, you might just want to go for that Nightshade and pick up the KO, but either way, Alessio has all the options that he needs in order to close out this game 3.
Yeah, this Dusclops been doing great damage with the Nightshade, quite honestly. You know, usually you just see it there for a little bit of kind of chip and assistance. But, you know, he's been doing very, very well. Knowing about these like low health point numbers, being able to keep on going. The Nightshade going towards the protecting Rotom, the Hyper Voice going at both of them, which are protecting. That said, there's more Trick Room to come. It's not quite done. And, you know, the Primarina's still in a great position to wrap up this game.
Ooh, I just saw Yuri log in something very, very interesting here. Rotom going for the Protect, as will Excadrill trying to go for that double, as Dusclops goes for the Pain Split here. So just wants to regain itself up a little bit of health so it can put itself in a strong position in the next turn. But Primarina going for that Hyper Voice. It is enough to pick up the KO. Yuri just going for a little bit of styling, kind of guaranteeing and locking in that victory for himself. He's going to stay in the competition. Unfortunately, Eduardo will be knocked out from the Invitational. But what an amazing best of 3 set there. There was so much going on and just so many sways of momentum from both sides of the field.
Yeah, I mean, I think game 1 was a very aggressive game from both players, leading off, throwing out big attacks with their Dynamax Pokemon, just attack after attack, trying to get those knockouts. Game 2, we saw a very aggressive lead from Eduardo. He got an aggressive lead. You know,